Okay, so I just watched a video on YouTube that was basically like how to make a curriculum. I feel like that's kind of going around right now. A lot of us on the Discord server are actually talking about it, about like making a curriculum, and I've been meaning to work on mine. But essentially in the video, she says that there should be a brain dump, like what would you like to do, learn about, whatever, like what kind of things do you like? So let's just talk it out right now. Actually, things that I like to do and want to learn more about is definitely gardening. And the thing is, I actually already have a gardening journal of notes and things about gardening that I would like to continue to add to, because another YouTuber that I watch always says make your waiting room your classroom. And obviously I do not have the resources to have a garden right now. There are some community gardening programs in New York, but in all complete honesty, the only thing that you do when you're in a community garden in New York is pick weeds and trash up, honestly. And not saying that there's not value to that, and I probably should start going to my community garden again, but I just sometimes would rather actually get experience with botany and plants and things along those lines. And picking up trash and pulling weeds is not necessarily doing that. So I would really love to learn more about gardening, plants, all that stuff. Sorry, the lighting is so weird because the window is right behind me. But anyways, I really want to get more into the gardening. Sewing is another thing that I'm definitely going to be adding to my personal curriculum. Also, languages. I'm going to be so freaking honest with you guys and just let you know that my Italian journey has fallen off into a ravine. I was so excited about learning Italian earlier this year before my trip, blah, 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 all this stuff. Life just got busy, and also the really depressing thing about Italian as a language is not a language that I encounter on a daily basis. It's not a language that I hear very often. It's not a language that I know anyone that speaks it. So it's very difficult for me to practice when I don't feel like I have any practical experience with the language in terms of like being able to practice it or hear it or whatever. So I think I'm just gonna go back to maybe my Spanish learning journey and or Mandarin. Those are two languages that I've had a handful of years of experience of learning, and I have a pretty solid foundation for them. Anyways, that's something that I'm really interested in doing. And this is all just for the future. This is not for a specific amount of time right now. I'm just brainstorming. Gardening, sewing, languages, knitting. I think these are the things that I really want to focus on in the next like year or so. There's nothing else that I can think of necessarily off the top of my head that I like really aggressively want to learn or get better at the moment. So I think this is a good starting place. The next step is to refine your ideas into subjects, like subjects and goals, which is kind of like what I was just doing a little bit here. The gardening, I really just want to have a better foundation of gardening and the science behind it, like the soil science and things like that, so that I can go into having a garden like knowing the basics already. Sewing, again, I really just want to get the basics down and then be able to create wearable pieces. Like I really want to make a dress. That is really my first goal. Languages, again, doing the test. And knitting, I really want to knit a sweater, but I think the first thing that I'm gonna do is like knit a scarf or something simple like that. Then the next step is to find materials. A lot of materials I have access to. I know that the New York Public Library gives you access to a language learning app that might be slightly different from Duolingo or whatever, so I might look into that. And then there's lots of books, movies, you know, YouTube, everything, whatever. And then finding assessments. So for gardening, I don't think there's necessarily an assessment that I'm like needing to do or whatever. For sewing, it's really just like making a wearable piece. Languages, it's the actual test, obviously. And then knitting, it's just knitting a piece as well. So this is really exciting. So I'm very excited to have some things to like get into. I also, okay, reading classics. I'm going to say reading and writing, because reading classics is something that I want to do more of. Like I want to go back and start reading like the canon of classic books. Not necessarily like the canon, because I don't really give a damn what all the dusty old white men have to say, but like older books that are really iconic in that way, like that are important for the foundation of literature that we know today, and working a bit more on writing. I don't know. It's never too late to start something, and just because you haven't been doing it a million years doesn't mean that you shouldn't try it. You're never too old to start something new and try something, and this is just another way to continue learning, because for me, one thing that I love to do is learn new things, and I think the system of school has burnt me out really, really bad in the past for a lot of different reasons, but I just love to learn. And I think the structure that school creates is very overwhelming for someone like me, and it gives me a lot of anxiety, and like academia in general has a lot of different things going on around it that can be very like not great. But that doesn't mean that I want to stop learning. It just means that I don't necessarily have to keep learning while also paying an institution to tell me that I'm stupid because I didn't turn in a piece of homework. So yeah, I feel like I actually talked about that for a lot longer than I thought I would. Haha, so I'm excited. Okay, a little bit of time has passed, and I kind of just want to go over what my curriculum is looking like next year, and the things that I want to do, the resources that I'm going to use, and the final project that I've given myself for each of these areas of study, shall we say. As I mentioned, one of my goals is to learn a bit more about gardening. So there's a couple of YouTubers, Hugh Richards, I have his book that I really would like to go through, study, take notes on, and also watch his videos because he has lots of really good advice on there. I would also really, in the like world of gardening, I also really want to learn more about preserving and like herb usages and stuff. And I know that the Honeystead, another YouTuber, is also very good at that. There's also like an encyclopedia which has been on my wish list for a while, so perhaps I can ask for that for a present at the end of the year. I know it doesn't really help me out at the beginning of the year, but I feel like it would be good. Or get secondhand, or even I could borrow it from the library, see if it's available at my library, and I could take notes and stuff from that. That's actually probably what I'm gonna do. So that's great. I have all those resources. The only thing that I really am gonna, assign myself to do is write notes about it. Anyways, the next topic that I would like to learn more about is sewing. I got a sewing machine at the beginning of this year as a late birthday present. Honestly, I was too intimidated by it all year to open it up or do anything about it, but I know that Sydney Graham has a beginner like series on her YouTube channel, so I'm definitely gonna be using her as a major resource because she has a lot of videos about sewing, and I know plenty of other people do as well. Val from the server also just shared something that is looking like a really good kind of like written resource that I can definitely use for notes and stuff in terms of like beginning basics for sewing and everything. So that's also going to be very helpful. And my final project for after learning how to sew, blah, 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 whatever, is to make myself a baby doll dress. I feel like that would be really simple, super easy. I have the materials, I don't have to buy anything. I just really want to learn how to use my sewing machine and ideally be able to make myself some clothes next year. That's literally the dream. Just working my way towards being more self-sufficient. Sewing is a huge one. Along those lines, I would really like to get better at knitting. I literally only know how to do the knit stitch right now. There are lots of resources online. You could find tutorials on how to do certain stitches, and a lot of people have like video patterns as well as written patterns. My final project is going to be the step-by-step sweater, which is a free pattern of how to do a sweater with like a full like hour-and-a-half long video showing you how to do the certain techniques of things. So that's going to be really helpful. I think I might start with the Sophie hood by Petite Knit because it's a really good way to just practice knitting, increases, decreases, all that stuff. So that's great. I'm excited for that. In terms of the more literary or linguistic side of things, I really want to get my spark back in terms of language learning. I tried last year with the Italian, but it's really hard for me to stick to a language that I'm not hearing or interacting with a lot, and I just don't interact with Italian very much at all, and it's a lot easier for me to interact with Spanish just because there's a lot of Spanish speakers here, blah blah blah. There's lots of reasons why it's easier for me with Spanish. It's also probably my best language besides English. I'm not saying that I'm a master in Spanish by any stretch of the imagination. I have very basic Spanish skills, but my comprehension is decent. I just don't know that much vocabulary and grammar, and I would like to get better at that. I know that I have access to Mango via the New York Public Library, and then there's lots of other free sites and like podcasts and other things. There's a billion free resources on how to learn Spanish. I can also watch movies, take notes, all this stuff. However, the way to prove that I've actually learned and done some work is taking one of the, like, you know how there's like the levels of how good you are at a language. They have like A1, A2, B1, B2. It goes all the way to like C3 or C1 or something like that. I'm about at an A1 or A2 right now, and I would love to get to a B1 by the end of the year. So ideally, I would be able to take a B1 test by the end of the year and pass it. I think you can do that for free online. I will have to look more into it. So yeah, that's good. For reading and writing, I would really love to read a handful of classics next year. Let me like write this down because I said 6 for the year, which I guess is one every 2 months. One of my ones that I really want to read, and I think it's going to be the first one that I tackle, is Wuthering Heights, just because they're making a movie of it and everyone's talking about it, and how the trailer so far is like totally removed from anything that could even possibly be happening in the actual book of Wuthering Heights, and people are really confused and angry and upset. And I definitely want to read it. Also Dorian Gray, also Little Women. I would also really love to read Northanger Abbey. I have the Brothers Karamazov on my physical TBR. I bought it in college because my philosophy professor suggested it to us as a really good book to read if you're into philosophy. So I'm just gonna count that as one of my classics as well. And I don't really know what to do for my final project in terms of like my reading classics and stuff. I might do things along the way, so maybe potentially give me some ideas in the comments. I'm thinking I could either do a video for each of them, and or I could do like a book report and just like write it up for myself and share it, or something along those lines. Like, I don't necessarily want to force myself to write an essay every 2 months because I have enough going on in my life, but I could do a video. I could do a little book report. I could do an in-depth review. Like, there's lots of options. So let me know what you think would be best. I still have to think of a 6th book to read. How about The Wide Sargasso Sea? That is the companion novel that is technically not canon, but like in the literary world, a lot of people regard it as a companion novel to Jane Eyre, which I read last year, and I really enjoyed it. And Wide Sargasso Sea is basically from the point of view of one of the characters in Jane Eyre who perhaps is a bit misunderstood, and it talks a bit more about colonialism, misogyny, all these things, and perhaps why this character is so misunderstood. So I find that very intriguing, and I think those are gonna be my 6 classics books that I really want to read for the year, just to expand a little bit. I feel like lately I've been reading a lot of like brain candy, which is fine, but you know, I also want to use my reading to like expand my mind and learn things and read classics and be a part of those conversations as well. So yeah. And last but not least, I would really love to do a bit more writing. I have a handful of random projects that I've kind of been scraping on by through. I have a screenplay, musical adaptation kind of thing, which I don't even know if it's worth going through because there's lots of things that have to do with rights and everything because it's a jukebox musical. Ray and I really wanted to write a book together, and I think it would be really awesome if our final project for the end of the year would be to have the outline done. And my mom just visited a couple weeks ago for Thanksgiving, and we went to a bookstore and she bought us a copy of Bird by Bird, which she said is a really good book in terms of like the craft of writing. And I also have a copy of something character. I bought it a couple years ago for Ray when he was writing his screenplay. I think both of those books, reading them for my curriculum and then using that knowledge to write the outline of the book that Ray and I want to write, would be really good. So those are just like hopeful projects and things. I don't know if anything's gonna happen with any of those writing projects, but I think it's really good to flex that creative muscle. So anyways, that is essentially the goal for next year in terms of my curriculum. I will definitely be posting update videos of how these things are going, particularly probably my sewing adventures and my knitting adventures. If you want to see more about my reading adventures, I will perhaps just post that on my booktube channel that is not getting that much use, besides perhaps a couple of reading vlogs here and there, because I do kind of want to integrate, if I'm doing a vlog or whatever, like I can talk about a book on here and it's like not a big deal. But if it's like purely just a book thing, I'll just leave it over on that channel and that'll just be where it lives, and that's okay, because the algorithm really hates it when you try to switch things up. So anyways, I feel pretty good about this. I would love to hear anything that y'all are planning to do in terms of your curriculum, or things that you just want to focus on next year or learn about or get a little bit more in depth with. I know a lot of us are talking about it in the Discord group as well, so feel free to pop in over there. So thank you so much for watching. I will see you in the next one, and until then, I'm sending you all my love, because we're all just trying our best out here. So yeah, that's it. See you later.